I'm done. I want to be done. That's what I hear a lot from a lot of people these days about the difficulties of the pandemic. At Rosh Hashanah, we were 6 months into this already, into some form of lockdown. And now, today, Rosh Hashanah was 6 months ago. We are about to hit the year mark, in other words, of this situation. At Rosh Hashanah, I talked to all of you about this as an endurance race, a marathon. Specifically, I likened it to an Alaskan dog sled race and quoted the Jewish dog sled racer, Blair Braverman. She said this then: mid-pandemic now, we have no idea how far it is to the finish line. What this means for people, for us, is that we can't just plan to take care of ourselves later. We shouldn't expect to catch up on sleep when we really crash, or to reach out to loved ones after we're struck by loneliness. We should ask for support before we need it. We should support others before they ask. Because if you don't know how far you're going, you need to act like you're going forever. Planning for forever is essentially impossible, which can actually be freeing. It brings you back into the present. How long will this pandemic last? Right now, that's irrelevant. What matters is eating a nourishing meal, telling someone you love them, walking your dog, getting enough sleep. What matters is that, Blair Braverman said, to the degree that you can, you make your own life sustainable every day. So that's what Blair wrote 6 months ago. And we think now and hope now that we are further along the endurance race than we were then. We have a roadmap, after all, out of London lockdown, and we as a community are drawing up our own intentional, safe roadmap for slowly opening up ourselves. That is partly, as I said, why I'm here in this building today. The hope is that my presence here is a sign of things to come, a taste of when, God willing, we can all be back here in this space together. The Torah portion Jeanette so beautifully laned today starts, Ki voshesh Moshe laredet. We, the Jewish people, were getting antsy, nervous, frustrated, strung out because Moses had been so long up the mountain. He dallied or was delayed. At the very least, he wasn't present when we got tired and scared. So the people started to say to Aaron, his brother, I'm done. I want to be done. We are in some ways, that same place. Beyond our own specific individual circumstances, each unique, as a collective, we are exhausted. And underneath it, we have all been afraid. No wonder the Jewish people, in a last desperate act, threw off their gold earrings into the fire and built the golden calf. Better to have something than nothing. Better to have something than this uncertainty. There are two well-known and very different ways to look at this moment of the golden calf, Jewishly. The first is by Sforno, the Italian Renaissance commentator. Sforno says that this is a defining moment, this golden calf, because perhaps life and our experience of it is about these cycles. Sometimes we are content or flourishing or doing well. And sometimes, like now in our life and in the Torah portion, life is hard, a terrible struggle, and we are set back. The golden calf moment in Jewish history was perhaps our deepest spiritual setback. The moment when we felt so utterly alone, having escaped slavery in Egypt and found ourselves in the wilderness as we felt nothing, and waiting to endure Moses' long absence up Mount Sinai. So we made a statue in place of the divine. We wanted surety. We had learned about God. We had learned that God's demand, well, really life's demand, is that we be patient and resilient and compassionate and big pictured about the warp and weft of the universe's infinite interconnectedness. That was too hard. Sforno says life is full of collective setbacks like this, where we endure hard things, make hard choices, sometimes the wrong ones. The second Jewish interpretation of the golden calf moment is from Nachmanides, the famous commentator from the golden age of Sepharad in Spain. In his telling of the Jewish story, he ignores the golden calf moment altogether. He says, our story and the story of life is the story of progress, of learning, of getting better, and of eventually building a redeemed world, fixing the brokenness. So the golden calf story, a setback like this, has no place in that story of progression, of moral progress. So he just doesn't tell us about it. So on the one hand, Sforno says life is struggle, that we're due a pandemic. And on the other hand, Nachmanides says, we are learning all the time, perhaps even learning something from this moment, that we are in fact progressing. And perhaps both are true. There's a mystical Jewish idea, in fact, that life began with redemption, the Garden of Eden, and life will end with redemption when we achieve tikkun olam, the fixing of this broken world. And that the steps in between those two redemptions are indeed like a cycle, like a spiral of setbacks and triumphs, of real hardship and of great joy. So both Sforno and Nachmanides are right. You're done, I'm done, we want to be done. Moses has tarried too long on the mountain, and we are tired and we are scared. This broken moment is then hopefully one where we can also learn. And not to say that any of this difficulty is justified or earned, just to say it is happening. So what are we going to do about it? Shabbat provides some answer too. Shabbat right now is about time outside of time, a time just to abide, not to be frustrated or concerned about what will happen next, not to wish things otherwise. Now is like this. So in extremis, in our difficulty, we will still continue to make mistakes, to throw our earrings in the fire and hope an easy, concrete golden calf answer comes out of it. In the meantime, though, there is indeed the truth of what we are reminded of in this week's Parsha. We can still try to be patient and resilient and compassionate and big pictured about the warp and weft of the universe's infinite interconnectedness. We can still, on this Shabbat, try to simply abide. In that spirit, I'll end with one final answer or thought by an Arab American poet, Naomi Shihab Nye. She says, before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment, like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go, so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows, and then you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, it is I you have been looking for, and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend. Shabbat shalom.